Meeting of the Coventry Municipal Fire Commission to order at 6:05 PM. Roll call, Hillary Lima, present. John Paul Verducci. Lieutenant McCann. Captain McAloon.
Present.
Ryan Teston. Russell McGilvery.
Present.
Peter Rondeau.
Present.
Jillian Weinmiller.
Present.
Daniel Perillo. Robert Savetti. Stephen Angel. Chief Heiss. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. In the event of an emergency, those present this evening can exit outdoors labeled number 1 or 2 in the back of council chambers to the front lawn or back parking lot of town hall. We have 3 sets of meeting minutes for review this evening: March 13th, 2025, April 10th, I assume that's 2025, not 24, and May 22nd, 2025. Do I hear a motion to take these minutes as a block? Motion, do I hear a second?
May I, please?
Sure.
At last meeting, I misspoke, and I want to correct myself for the record. Hopkins Hill District's chief has an arrangement, an agreement, a contract with the district. I think I misspoke when I said it's null and void. If there's a merger, we have an obligation. The obligation is not whatever the town decides. That was my bad. I misspoke, and I just want to correct myself.
Okay. Did you share those edits to the, or how you'd like it phrased with the clerk?
I did not.
All right. So let's just take the March 13th and April 10th minutes, and then if you want to submit the specific edits to that language in the minutes for May 22nd, we can get those on the next agenda. All right. So March 13th and April 10th, do I hear a motion to take those, or can we get a withdrawal of the previous motion second? Okay.
Second.
So can we get a motion for March 13th and April 10th to take those as a block?
I also have some comments too, though. I don't know if that matters. Before we do that.
Okay, which ones?
March 13th and May 22nd.
Okay. March 13th, you want,
So March 13th, I don't know if I misspoke or if it's just not accurate, but lines 105 to 107. The board doesn't want it. I don't know the opinion of the chief or all the per diem members. So I don't really want it in the record to say that they all don't want it because I don't know.
okay.
And then for the May 22nd, similar to Hopkins Hill, it says Western contracts null and void. But in our contract, it doesn't actually say that. It was kind of the opposite.
Okay.
So.
So I don't know if you have the specific lines in the minutes that, because we can say it on the record here to be updated, and then the clerk can make those changes.
I printed them out. It's line 44,
This is May 22nd.
the 22nd, in both the Western and Hopkins Hill is in that same sentence. Contracts are null and void if a merger takes place. And that is what I want to correct. I misspoke, and I believe Jillian is.
Yeah, but same.
But is this a correction of minutes? Because that's technically what was said. I don't know if,
So I think it would be a correction because I believe you said it was null and void, but for Western, it's not. And I said that.
but I think what I'm saying is like, that's what was said in the meeting. That's the
I did not
minutes.
say it.
You didn't say it, but you did. So I don't think we can go back and like rewrite how a meeting went. I don't know. Can someone correct me if I'm, yeah, no. Yeah. Yeah, you can say on the record now, but I don't think you can go back and change your opinion on something or how you state it, like how.
Spoke, I didn't want to mislead.
Nope, that's fair enough. That can be in these minutes today. So, Jillian mentioned hers, and then the March 13th ones. Does anyone else have any corrections in any of the other minutes? Because if that's the case, we can do all 3 today. Oh, no, we can continue these. How about April 10th? Were there any to April 10th? All right, let's at least consider April 10th. Do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 10th, 2025?
Motion to approve.
Motion, do I hear a second? Second. Any discussion? Um, you can abstain if you want. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain, I was not there.
And the motion passes. And I will take a motion to continue the meeting minutes of March 13th, 2025 and May 22nd, 2025. Motion, do I hear a second? Second. Any discussion?
One more thing I missed. Line 99, you just need an ER at fire for firefighters instead of firefights.
Okay. Got it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. So we'll get revised minutes for the next time. Public comment on docketed items only. If there's any members of the public who would like to speak on docketed items, please raise your hand on Zoom to be let in. Public comment going once, twice, 3 times. Public comment is closed. Moving to new business for discussion and or action, we have 3 items this evening. Discussion of pension, combined pension and retirement infrastructure and impact. Discussion of base staffing level to build personnel budget around, and discussion on draft outline for a final work product to the town council. So the pension piece, there's been some conversation around feeling that there needs to be a joint analysis of the 3 entities that are already in MERS and what a blended ARC payment would look like. So we just wanted to bring that up for discussion. I think Bob was the one who had the comment about that.
Yes, that's been the discussion, what that number is gonna look like. Obviously, each district pays their own ARC now, but what a combined one's gonna look like is really one question. And then how do we bring in Weston into the mix? So I sent an email out to the General Treasurer's Office to find out what that process would look like and a potential time frame. I just sent it out yesterday, so I haven't heard back yet. But I think that's an important piece of the puzzle going forward.
Yeah, and I think the other question was whether Western be left in their own 401k or those folks be absorbed into MERS, and what the startup cost to bring them into MERS was. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it would be depending how much time they have in their current positions. Yes, correct.
How do we examine the pros and cons of just letting them stay grandfathered into 401k versus MERS?
I think it really comes down to a contractual, right? And we have to, part of the union contract that comes together, you'd have to stipulate X number of employees that were previously at Weston, they would have a 401A benefit versus the others. But any new hires would go into the state system. I think that all have to be worked out with the union because you want everybody in a comparable pension arrangement.
Yeah.
You know, so I couldn't see, again, there's a lot to look at, but you know, the discussion was if you had, I guess, one of the older gentlemen, one of the older firefighters, has been in a 401A or 401k type of plan, he's been getting contributions to that all these years. If you now put him into a MERS plan and you give him all the years of credit, well, now he's getting double the pension.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that you have to look at and really try to work through.
What's the conversation you've heard on this?
I guess my question would be, would they have an option too? So a lot of the people who are full-timers are relatively new, I would say within the last 1 or 2 years, minus the one gentleman that you were talking about. But I would assume that they would want to be in the MERS if everybody else is. I don't know how that works legally. I don't really know how pensions work. So I know that he would, or all of them would probably want an option at least.
I think if you become part of the pension system, everybody has to be in that pension plan. Obviously, if we have this one isolated case, you can, you know, make the argument that he's so close to retirement possibly and everything that took place. But somebody that's been in the for 1 or 2 years, 3 years, I think they'd have to roll into the pension plan to get those years of services. Would you have to work out? Say maybe they have to do a contribution in to get the years of, you know, credit.
You use your 401k to buy. Can you use your 401k money to perhaps buy years? Okay.
The don't think, the retirement system, we'd have to work with them. Again, it's a lot of actuarial calculations. I don't think it's something they're gonna throw together overnight. My guess is you're probably looking at a 2-month period of time before they can even give you a calculation of what the combined rate would be, never mind adding in people that weren't part of the plan and what's it cost to get them those years of service already.
Russ, what did they do about this in EG when they moved together? Did they do a combined analysis first on all their MERS or?
It didn't, we were in the MERS. The East Greenwich firefighters were in the MERS. The
Oh, it was the one fire district too.
one fire district was taken over
Okay.
by the one town. We didn't have,
So it didn't-
the
that
3 or
didn't-
4, it was pretty easy.
Okay. So it sounds like the two questions that we need answered from this are, what's the process of bringing in the relatively new labor of Western potentially into MERS? And, follow up to that, how do you move previous 401k contribution into that? Is that possible?
And to our finance director, are you aware if, would MERS give you different options about what it takes to come in? Or do they just tell you, hey, this is how many people you have, this is what the ARC's gonna be? They're not gonna design or help us out on this thing that's gonna be contractual?
I've never been involved with a situation where MERS had the different type of plans, so, the one case out in Lincoln, when they had the consolidation, some of the firefighters there still a part of the town's plan. So those firefighters stayed in the town plan, but all the new firefighters were already part of MERS. It was a matter of merging the Albion and Salesville fire districts and coming up with a new rate. So it's a little different versus a 401k.
And that's also happened, the city of Cranston in 1995 did the same thing. Some of the firefighters stayed in the city plan. Anybody after 95 went into the state plan. Town of West Warwick did it a couple of years ago. Anybody hired, I think it was after 23 or 24, are now in the MERS, mandatory in the MERS. And anybody before had the option to either stay in a legacy program is what they called it, because that's where my pension comes out of, a legacy program out of West Warwick. I'm not in the MERS by their grade, but they manage the fund and send me, send out the pension checks every month through the
Yeah.
state as well.
How far off are the pension plans between the three districts, or are they not?
As far as what would you like to know? Percentage funded?
Like, I keep hearing about like the comparability of each of them, like, or is it just like how far apart are they in terms of getting everybody on the same page, or is that not a?
Well, they're all in the MERS.
Oh, okay.
They're all in the MERS. Okay. Well, each district obviously has got a different percentage of funding.
Mhm.
The ARCs are different and the ARC from the state is different for each district. Hopkins Hill, is paying 11.22% of the employee's salary to the ARC, where, Coventry Fire District is 49.28. But that's because, and we are 33.13 this year. And then those numbers change over the next couple of years as the state gets better.
But isn't there a lift that needs to be done to get those all on the same page in terms of that, or?
Again, that's the state analysis. Their actuaries will come in, prepare an analysis based on the census data they have for each district.
Yeah,
Say, now combining these, what's the new?
that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
So it's gonna be somewhere.
But all districts are greater than 60% funded, which is their critical mark.
Okay,
And I hate to say it, but we'll get a little bit of benefit. Hopkins Hill's 102% funded. So that would help balance out in other places.
Mhm.
But again, that's up to the state to figure out exactly what the new ARC with the new number of employees, years of service, years of retirement, that kind of stuff that's coming up. But they're all in the same pension, 25 years, 50% pay at age 50. So it's 25.50.
okay. I will say JP and I and Bob and Dan, we had a conversation with Steve Busquet yesterday. He came to the meeting, council meeting a couple weeks ago. And this was one of the topics with respect to Central's liability. The talk about the net position of the negative 4.7 million. And we talked about how all of that except for about 500,000 or 300,000 is pension liability. And there was a comment about how, I guess, when there were previous meetings of trying to tackle this issue with a former committee that occurred 2 or 3 years ago, there was an idea floated about bonding that debt and then putting a lien on the central Coventry properties until they pay it, because again, one of the detractor points to putting everybody together is nobody wants to pay for Central's sins. So I just want to throw that out there, that that's what where the conversation went. And I flat out asked him, is that really the only bone Western has to pick with all of this? And he said yes, but I don't know that I agree with that.
No, the
Chime
pension,
in.
the pension system is being addressed at the General Assembly level.
I know.
We're all making it, but like it's a mortgage.
Yeah.
You know, the pension would only be that short if we stopped today. If
Mhm.
everybody stopped paying and it didn't work anymore, but that's not,
I'm just relaying all
Yeah, no, I
opinions
understand
that are
that.
coming to me.
according to the paperwork from the state, we are $4,180,345 of an unfunded liability.
Mhm.
Anthony's 2,997,000. So one's a little over 4 and one's right at 3. We're not that far off of each other, and obviously they have a surplus, so they're 100,000 over.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, a 100-year problem from now for us as far as pensions and liabilities. Those liabilities don't exist except on a piece of paper in the math room.
Mhm.
Realistically, the state's not gonna come to us for $7 million tomorrow and say, hey, you gotta pay this.
Right, it's
Because
this,
it's staying in,
it's the same around the conversation that the town's 100 million in
Right.
debt, but it's all pension
Right.
Um,
I would assume that would affect the ARC. Because
correct.
we're bringing on the more. It would be some good, some bad. We've got the one that's 100 and something percent, and then that'd be balanced out by
with the other ones that are under, right?
but around total 7 million.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And now, I mean,
Well, yeah, because the town's exploring police going into MERS and the town employees as well, so that's a larger conversation, because that analysis is still being explored. What?
which was the analysis when the town of West Warwick did it a couple years ago. They didn't want to be in the pension business.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we're in the
the
minority
$15
by,
billion take care of it, not.
we're in the minority by still managing a pension
Right.
in-house. Right.
Which essentially, this could be the first step to getting the rest of the town into the pension, do it, you know.
Right, right. All right, so we've got our questions here, which is the rolling new people in and that process and the analysis. That leads into obviously part of the cost of, so trying to figure out what is the staffing structure, how many of each rank are we going to have? Does anyone need to be shuffled? There were questions we got when we talked to Steve yesterday about the chief situation, which it sounds like you guys talked about, with respect to what chiefs we have now and how that was going to work when we go down to one. I think there was discussion about how Anthony's chief is chief in name only, really, and knows the story. Central, same thing. And then Western, I know, has a contract, but we just talked about how Hopkins Hill does in fact have a clause that says he's got a guaranteed job even if he doesn't get chief.
I
And but
talked to Steve before this meeting too. He sent me,
I got the same thing. Yep.
it says that even if he's not chief, his salary remains and he would be assistant.
Yeah, it says, in the event that a merger or consolidation of the Hopkins Hill Fire District or a successor organization occurs and John H. Potvin is not selected to be the fire chief of the successor organization, all provisions of this agreement shall remain valid and enforceable, and the district hereby agrees to create and establish a new position within the district for John H. Potvin. Said position shall be designated as assistant fire chief and shall be at the same rate of pay and benefits as provided for in section 4.
That is correct. In addition, that contract is to 2028, from 25 to 28. So it's not, that's the end of the contract. His contract is a 3-year contract. That is exact language in the contract.
Yeah,
What
but
does that benefits include? Like a vehicle, all the, I don't know what other benefits there are.
It's good vehicle in healthcare and, yeah,
Like your typical.
My only question is the legality of, because the town's starting its own department. So my question is, how can this other quasi-government agency contract dictate that? I don't know. I'm just asking.
The contract was put in place.
The districts are not dissolving.
No, the contract was put in place because there's no guarantee this merger is going to take place.
Yeah,
So, we look into the future. That's how it was
right.
put together. The language is, that is the district's responsibility to that individual. And what happens at the town level, you might walk in and get the position. I don't know. I mean, that's what water that's not even got close to the bridge yet, is how even that's going to take place, or interviews, or however that's going to happen. But from the Hopkins Hill District standpoint, that's an obligation we have with him.
What about the Western Chief contract? Is there anything similar?
I sent it today, actually. It says, it is expressly agreed that this agreement shall survive in the case of the sale of employer or merger of employer with any other organization or formation of a town municipal department, given that any sale or merger does not terminate this agreement.
So essentially the same thing.
And I kind of had a question. I'm a little concerned, especially from item C. I know we're talking about B, but it kind of goes with what you just said. The solicitor hasn't been to any of the meetings since like March, and we're still waiting on a bunch of legal stuff. I don't know how we can end this without having a lot of the information that we're waiting on from him.
Yep.
And a lot of these questions are stemming from it too.
Mhm.
Is he gonna be at the next meeting?
He is. I told him he needs to.
Okay, so
Yep.
we'll have a lot of these questions answered then.
Yes. I'll give him these questions ahead of time so that way he can come prepared with an answer. So I know there, and then so we have a lot of questions about the chief piece. It sounds like, I mean, we can't have 3 chiefs. So we have to get that figured out. But in terms of the base staffing level, we're at 52 now, 54 with 2 administrators technically. I know there's been conversation about bumping that up by 8 to 62. So I think we need to give, what I've talked about with Bob and Dan is that this final product delivered to the council shouldn't give like a 1-lane option. It should say, here, town council, are your options for personnel in a future department. It's either status quo, 62, or that phase 2 piece. I think you give a spectrum of options. What's that?
So as it stands right now, you look at, Central has 23. Hopkins Hill. How many? That including your chief. That's include, so that's 8, okay, 8. 11 over at Anthony. 6. 48.
So we're not even at full staff. Who still has openings right now?
Everybody. So I think at Central, starting to talk, but I think they're, correct me if I'm wrong, we're budgeting to 28. The 20,
Working on the budget for next fiscal, yeah.
there'll be only 12 at Anthony and then 9 at,
So there's only 1 opening at Anthony.
correct.
Hopkins Hill's down 1. That's currently being advertised place where we were at.
So what is it right now without full, what did you say that number?
Now, we're at total 48,
48. That's including chiefs,
yes.
but 54 is full manpower, right?
48. 23, 30, yeah. 41.
No, chiefs he included. Chiefs are included.
The chief makes 8.
Hopkins Hill right now is at 8.
Right. So that gives you, means you're at 50 right now.
Right, so 50 right now. Yep, and then 1, 2, and 1, you're down, so 54 is full, okay. And then the 62 would be to add another rescue.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yep,
out of all those people, the 54 on all the departments, a point somebody brought up earlier, I'm going to stress right now, we have one full-time rescue in town today. Everybody else crossmans. Everybody else is at the whim of what the 911 call is. There's only one full-time EMS vehicle for 64 square miles.
Mhm.
That should scare people.
well, I don't disagree, but I'm just saying you need to show how you're getting to, say if the recommendation is 62, you need to show the town council and the public how you're arriving at 62 and why. Instead of just, because someone's gonna say, well, what's wrong with just keeping it the manpower we have? You need to tell that story, that's my point.
Yeah, the 8 personnel would be to put in rescue 7, I guess, either at Station 7 or Station 8, but somewhere to cover the other 32 square miles. There's 3 down here. There's nothing up there.
Right. Yep.
And when we do that exercise, is there any way to, look at from a high level, differences in response times or, not exact, obviously, but I think people have a sense that if we're going to do something like that, something should improve on that end. I know it's not an exact science, but anything we can point to when we do those kinds of projections?
Yeah, there are programs that you can use that will map out if a truck were to be here, where they could get in their 8-minute response time.
I timed it once. We have an, I think it's assisted living facility on Plainfield Pike. I believe the 8s were at a hospital. And it took the next responding rescue, which I think was 22 minutes to get there. So
Because I think that'd be a powerful thing to have next to these kinds of things, is even if you do it.
it's been a heart attack, you're dead.
Right. That's that's where a lot of the stuff trumps some of the other stuff.
I personally had a call, Rescue 8 was out about 6 months ago. I had a CPR call at the old Alpine Nursing Home. It took me 19 minutes to get on scene for a CPR in progress.
So can we get to the nitty gritty in terms of what each district has in terms of the ranks of folks? So we can see how many of each, okay, you got it all? So, what's at Anthony, obviously we have someone who's acting as chief, but what's his rank otherwise? He's a captain.
So he's a captain. The Anthony Fire District is 12 people, right?
They're down one.
Down 1.
but-
So they have 4 shifts of 3 people.
Yep.
1 officer, 2 firefighters, 1 shift has a captain, the other 3 have lieutenants. So it's a captain and 3 lieutenants, so 1 for every shift, and 2 firefighters to work with them. So they only have 3 people
So 1 captain, 3 lieutenants, and 2,
and 2 firefighters. So there's a total of 12.
okay. Hopkins Hill, what do we have for rank?
We have 1 deputy chief, 2 captains, and an acting lieutenant at this time.
No one,
and 3 privates.
There's your short one. It should be 4.
We should have 4 privates.
all right, central,
So we have 1 captain per shift. They're all on engine 4. And they have 1 firefighter with them. And then there are lieutenants on the 4 shifts for the rescue and lieutenants on the 4 shifts for engine 7.
wait, so how many lieutenants total?
8. 8 lieutenants, 4 captains.
And 4 privates.
No.
Sorry. I'm not following.
So engine 4.
Yeah.
This guy's an officer and a firefighter on it. Yeah, there are 12 firefighters total.
Got it.
There- Huh? Probably not, but I can email it and send it. I mean, it's,
So 11 private, that's what,
11, because they're short one.
okay, so, and then,
We also,
but that person's a captain otherwise,
he's the assistant chief.
assistant chief. Okay. And then Western,
We have a chief, a captain, and then a per diem member who's a deputy chief. I don't know if you wanted to count. And the rest are all, I think, privates.
how many privates?
Full-time would be 4.
So Western staffing would be 2 days or 2 around the clock?
24,
Two.
24 off, 24 on, and 5 off. And then per diem members. So, we do the 4 platoon shift, I think it's called.
Yep.
So we have, one of the full-timers is a cardiac or above, so we have one of the full-timers per shift. One of the shifts, we have a full-timer who, is a basic, and then the other 3 shifts are per diems. And then if full-timers call out, we'll ask per diems as well to come in.
Total. Thank you. Yep. So that's 6, 25,
Hang on,
11.
I'm tallying to see if I match up with you guys. And then. So I've got across the whole, all districts, 8 captains, 12 lieutenants, 20 privates, 3 deputy or assistant chiefs. I don't know if there's a difference between deputy or assistant. Deputy chief per diem in Western, deputy chief in Hopkins Hill, and an assistant chief in Central. Do you not want me to count the per diem? And then 2 chiefs. Does that spread need to change in a combined entity? I'm asking because I don't know. One captain and Anthony, 3 lieutenants, and 2 privates. Is that correct? Okay. Okay. So then it's,
But this is where they're supposed to be.
so is Hopkins Hill 2 captains?
Our numbers are juggling because we're talking about guys that they haven't replaced yet, but where we should be are these numbers.
That's what I'm confused.
Yes.
Hopkins Hill is 2, yeah, okay. So 2 captains in Anthony, 2 captains in Hopkins Hill. You guys are getting frustrated with me. I don't live this every day and I don't have this document in front of me. I need you to just speak to me in rank. Don't speak to me in shift. Speak to me in rank.
Okay.
8 captains.
1 captain,
Okay, I just said that.
1.
I said, so Anthony has 1 captain. You went. You said there's 1 officer per shift.
Yes. 1 captain,
Yeah, that's what I said. 1 captain.
3 lieutenants.
I said 1 captain, 3 lieutenants, 2 privates in Anthony.
There's 8 privates.
Good God. And 3 lieutenants. Okay. Hopkins Hill,
Hopkins Hill.
deputy chief,
Is 8 people.
yep. Yep. Yep, 3 privates.
Was out 4.
Those have 4. Okay,
Right now, I have 7 people. 8 at full strength.
yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's only 8. Down 1 private?
Down 1.
Okay, so tell me what you actually are supposed to be. Is it 5 privates?
4 privates. 4 off.
Right now, it's 4, you have 1 acting lieutenant. So you need either another lieutenant or a captain. Sweet. Okay. Okay, so then I'm gonna say ×2 for lieutenant. Central, you have your assistant chief, which is your acting chief, 4 captains, 11 privates, or is it supposed to be something else? Oh, I'm gonna put 12. And 8 lieutenants.
Correct.
Okay. Western, you have a chief, a captain, and 4 privates. What are you supposed to have? The deputy per diem chief. I won't include that. No, just what you are and what you're budgeted for right now. Is it just 6? All right, so how many? So, so you have 5 5 per diem, 6 full-time. No,
They just, label them as 6 people. At full strength.
Okay.
Right now, they have 6,
okay,
excluding this.
so then that's 1, 2, 3, 7. So yeah, still 8 captains. 3, 5. That's 13 lieutenants. $28 privates. I won't count the deputy chief in Western. I'll just do deputy or assistant chiefs, 2 chiefs. That's 53. Thought it was 54. Bob, am I right? Yeah. So let me ask this, what would be what you need? What would the additional 8 be if you do the phase 1 improvement of staffing? But don't, yeah, and then would you need to shuffle officers around from other stations to then round out everywhere else?
That would be the benefit as one group. Then you'd have a bid system and then everybody can bid to where those open spots are.
Okay,
And that would honestly, that would be, I mean, we look at FTEs, there'll be the chief's job and the unions, like the bidding process, like Kevin said, to get people in the positions that are required.
okay. Because that's one of the things I've heard is that we're top heavy and we don't have the next generation coming in.
I'll disagree with that.
Oh, someone told me we had an issue with
Oh,
not having enough firefighters of the like the entry level. And that we were gonna have an issue of a lot of them being at the same level and retiring at the same time.
Well, right now you got 2 deputy chiefs and 2 chiefs, so right now you got 4 people for 2 spots. So that's kind of what I mean. And then secondly, I'm sorry? Well, I'm just saying on paper right now, we have 2 deputies and 2 chiefs, so we have 4 people for 2 spots. What would the minimum manning be, you guys think? for 54 people? What's the minimum manning look like for a department of 54? And who does that include?
It's just his normal state.
Looking at a minimum of 14 a shift.
Minimum manning 14?
56. 13, give you 52.
Is that with the 62 or 54?
It's with the 54.
Yeah, the 54 would be.
Obviously-
14 per shift.
The minimum manning is what drives the overtime. So that's the concern, is we gotta make sure we have enough bodies to cover the minimum manning. That's the bottom line. Yep. Yep, absolutely. That's it.
Well, that's what we're at right now.
What?
Ideally,
What's
we know we
minimum
can't
manning
get-
with another rescue on?
16. Right, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16.
he would get absorbed into something. We'd be only doing it with 2 people per apparatus. You know, obviously, ideally, you need 3 on a truck, even.
So tell me what it needs to be.
We need a minimum of 2 on a truck.
So is that 16 for minimum manning if you add the 8 people to bring on the other rescue?
That, so just with that 16 on shift, that would give you 4 full-time rescues and 4 full-time engines.
$16 per shift, minimum manning at.
Well, I have it at rescue 1, 4, 7, and 8, staffing those trucks with 2 full-timers. That's 8. And engines 1, 4, 7, and 8, staffed at full-time.
Okay.
So a 62-person department, 16 minimum manning, including how high? Up to deputy chief?
It would be up through the deputy chief.
Yep.
And we haven't even talked about any other staffing positions, fire marshal for 1.
Yeah.
You need more than 1.
Oh, yeah.
At the last meeting, I think the last meeting, when you said the ideal staff and still not getting to the top level, I guess, we were at 89, correct? Including all offices. So 89 is the fully staffed and get you at a reasonable rate.
That's adding a full-time ladder truck, full-time marshal and an assistant and the deputy chief. This is not including chief's position.
So I think this also bleeds into the other item on the agenda, which is the personnel cost. There was concern that the numbers we were working with from the folks in the western end, that it was underestimated. So, I mean, you guys are on the call with Steve if you want to help relay what his concerns were.
Yeah, again, I think he just thought that the costs that were presented in Brian's presentation were on the low end. He thought that that was off about $500,000 in the calculation Brian put together. You know, what we talked about on that call was trying to put together, you know, looking at all the contracts and finding out what the rate is, whether it's a blended rate. I think, you know, we had the discussion earlier about the chief's contract, but you also have in each of the union contracts, it basically says, you know, those contracts come forward if they merged in part of the town or merged with another entity, you gotta take all the information that's in there is gonna carry it over. So, you know, we could put together based on the items they're giving here, say, and put together what would it cost to have, you know, whether it's 64, you know, doing it at 64, doing it at 89, based on the different level of personnel and based on what's in the highest contract at this point to get you the.
And sorry if this is a dumb question, but what do you do about certain ranks being paid differently at different districts? Like, do you bring up to parity? Like, do you come up to the highest person? Do some people go down? Like, how does that work? I don't know how that
I think
exercise.
Mr. Angel's gonna tell you that's all negotiable. When you form a collective bargaining agreement with the town, between the town and the local, this was done in 2006. So when the fire districts merged, when Tyoke, Washington, Harris, and Central merged in 2006, they went through the same growing pain. They parodied out people. Some people were getting less quote-unquote rank, but their pay grade was equal to the lieutenant someplace else, because the districts were so
Hmm.
skew. Now they're not too bad. You just got 3 spreadsheets there. That's what a firefighter costs you. In the Coventry Fire District, in the Hopkins Hill District, and the Central Coventry District, based on the contract information that I put together. Healthcare, dental, some have paramedic pay, some have a cardiac pay, some have longevity, some don't have longevity. You could see, if you follow those columns all the way to the right, generally in the subtotal columns there, that's pretty much what it costs for a full-time person all the way across. And I believe the new contract with the Anthony Fire or Coventry Fire District and the Central Coventry Fire District, those pays are already parity. Captain's a captain, lieutenant's a lieutenant. They're within a few bucks of each other.
That parity piece, in your opinion?
I don't think there's that much at all between the 3 districts. It's not much at all.
Okay.
They've all, yeah, a couple $1,000. It's not insurmountable. They're all right there.
I know, I think Anthony just bumped up their private, their starting, because
Yes.
they couldn't get anybody.
Yeah, because we can't get anybody. So when you get a fire chief and he sits down, you may have one extra captain somewhere and he'll just fit in a lieutenant spot until somebody, leaves through attrition, and then that spot will disappear and will be filled in by a lieutenant later.
Okay.
So, it's just the number of people at work that you really have to worry about. I think you're gonna have, more than enough spots, especially if you're gonna put in, Rescue 7, that automatically creates 8 different spots. There are the fire marshal spots not here, the chief, the deputy chief, whatever administrative positions are open. I think you're gonna find that what you have here will fill in those spots, and you're still gonna need 8, 10, 12 people to fill in the other vacancies.
Mhm.
Kind of projecting it out, if you look at, a timeline when this all kicks off, 18 months, 24 months, 12 months, whatever it is, there's a good possibility, right now you have 4, maybe 5 people at the top ranks, eligibility for retirement right now.
Are you suggesting proposing a buyout to some?
No, I'm just saying, but this is what to expect. You're worried about being top heavy. I think we're gonna lose a couple in the next couple of years.
Yeah,
They're eligible.
so, oh, sorry.
No, just off that last point, did we mention previously that there were some people coming in on the lower end or going to the academy to offset that? That would be
So
nice.
Right now, Central is in the process of hiring. 5. 5.
Yeah, so they'll be at step 1 for a couple, it takes them, I think, 30 months.
I think right now we're down to sorting out between 30 people that applied.
Okay.
We got it from 39 to 30.
I should also preface that these are worst case. These are everybody at top step for their payrolls. So this could, eventually this may be the problem. Oh, this could be the payroll, but this is everything at the max. This is what we're paying today from the trust for healthcare and for dental. These are as today numbers as I could get them in the Coventry Fire District just signed a contract. They use their numbers. Hopkins Hill, I use their numbers. And Central, we're in the process of negotiating a new contract. So these are as new as we've got.
So did we build a blended rate or a personnel cost based on these numbers? Are they different than what we did before? I'm trying to figure out the disconnect with Steve on this.
We haven't built anything.
Okay,
Yeah, I think Brian built that original chart.
okay,
haven't
well then,
Anything.
all right.
Thanks. Also, these numbers on the spreadsheets also include Hopkins Hill's chief is on here, a fire marshal and a deputy chief are on here for the Central Coventry. So these are like as true numbers as I could find.
Mm.
I wasn't on the call, so I can't say what he was saying, but I think for Western at least, for Brian's spreadsheet, for our budget, our per diems, like they don't get like the health benefit, the other benefits, and they're generally not at the same pay rate as well, so you might have been talking about that. So Brian's might have been a skew for Western,
I see.
because our budgeting is lower than what would be needed for a full timer.
Mhm.
I wasn't on the call, so I can't confirm that.
Okay.
Right, but we can substitute one of these numbers for those 5 positions. And that'll give you at least an idea as to what the full cost of would be for those 5, 6, 7, 8 new positions. You can guesstimate off of this as to what that person would really cost you, what the full-time equivalent price is.
What the 8 people in Weston will look at, like you said, taking Russ's number and average out for 8 people for that district, and that'll give you about what the cost is you're looking at for just Weston.
Okay.
Where I think his numbers were skewed a little bit high, I thought.
Okay.
And the pension contributions on these spreadsheets are at what the districts are paying currently in 2025 from the state for their ARC.
There are,
So
okay.
those numbers, the pension contributions could change. Some could come down, some could come up whenever that ever gets all melted together. State.
Can we put together a range of what a personnel budget would look like for a 54 or a 62 and include a fire marshal?
Yeah, I think if
Yeah, we could just move.
we can, Russ, if you could get a sheet together for Weston, like
Yep.
just how many positions they would need.
Sure.
You can drop in the highest rate, right?
Yep.
Utilize, go the worst case scenario.
Yep.
If we can get that, then, I can get together with Russ or
Yeah, we could just put those 5
get
numbers.
together and we just say, okay,
'Cause I have
we
included
add
the
to it.
fire marshal and the chief on here.
Right, I see that.
And the deputies on here from us, so, if those are really gonna be, budgeted numbers and these things, I think we're somewhere around 6.2 million for the current salaries that I have, not including Anthony's.
Weston.
Me too, 6.2 million.
So is,
Yeah, I think we're gonna use the average of what we're making, because I don't know where you guys will be. And actually, I might be low, yeah, so maybe I will ask you to make sure we're there. Okay, no problem.
Get that sheet.
Yeah, these are just
Together, get
just
it
an
to
Excel
me.
spreadsheet, it's easy enough, yeah, I
Send
can,
these to me through in Excel, send me
Yep.
their information. We'll put together, and if we gotta get up to 64 or 66, whatever that number is.
right, you could put the present one, and then, what another rescue would cost you, what another,
Privates, or we adding lieutenants.
yeah. The only difference I would probably do is, I don't know the salary for their chief, I guessed, at the Hopkins Hill chief. I would just parody the police chief and just put that as, whatever he makes is what the fire chief will make, and then, so that way you've got at least an idea as to what it would be.
In terms of action items from this, I think we need to get what a sample salary would be as appropriate for a fire marshal. And then we need to get draft personnel budgets for 54 and 62 man departments.
So the fire marshal salary that's on the spreadsheet is what is in the central Coventry contract, so that's why it's there.
But you haven't had it.
We didn't make that up, we haven't filled the position, but if he were to be hired tomorrow,
Do we
currently,
know that that's market rate?
we don't.
Okay.
That's, I
But
believe.
we can go by that for now, I guess.
Right, I think that's just captain's rate. He's equal to a
Is
captain.
it
that on-
just fire marshal? There's no other administrative we need to consider. Speak now for,
Or do you need a chief secretary, and a chief, an assistant chief, or a secretary, somebody to answer the phone, take whatever. If you look at the town of West Warwick, because that was kind of what I used, they have, was it 4 17-man shifts?
for a
with-
town 8 square miles.
Yes. 4 engines, 2 full-time rescues, full-time ladder truck. But administrative staff, they have 3 fire marshals. They have 3 in the communications division, because you need somebody to run the fire alarm boxes, do the I don't know who does communications now. I think it's Hopkins Hill, right? You guys run comms. There's usually some sort of superintendent of fire alarm. So they have 3 people in fire alarm, 3 people in the fire marshal's office, a chief and a deputy chief. We did not, but they are paid for.
We already
in
pay for them in the town
They're already in the town budget.
Towns are,
Right, yeah,
town already pays for dispatch.
correct.
So secretary and then assistant fire marshal, the other two, we need
Sure.
that. Okay. Um,
I don't know how in the weeds you want to get with fire marshal, but I know other towns have fire alarm specific, sprinkler specific, life safety specific. Um, I don't know how much work is in Coventry.
Yeah, I think we did.
I think we need,
Fire-
that would have to be a part of a staffing
Yeah,
improvement.
a fire marshal and assistant fire marshal, that's all you'll need.
Because right now, to me, my biggest concern is fire marshal because the last couple of years, because we don't have the staff to fill that, we've had to extend the deadline for renewal of licenses because the time would come and you guys needed somebody to be on a truck rather than go inspect, like,
I do have to sleep sometimes.
oh,
And then I don't know what staff manager or anybody would need to deal with the rescue billing collection, all the fire marshal fees are already collected by us, but how would that come, to the finance department? There's logistical stuff, but I don't think it's,
yeah, let's focus on
That's
the
easy.
budget piece.
Yeah.
All right, so 2 personnel budgets that include a fire marshal, assistant fire marshal, and an administrative person for the chief. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah, I think we're talking that not union, but the labor piece, and then there's administrative, I think. So it would be so it would be 56 and 64, right? No, I'm sorry, 57 and 65.
and you had mentioned some about minimum manning. Town would also have to decide if you would want to have extra personnel to take up the overtime. Sometimes floaters work better, sometimes overtime's cheaper. That would be a town discussion and decision.
So we should probably see versions of that too. Like what one with an overtime budget would look like and what one with a floater would look like, no?
You don't know.
Overtime's unknown.
I get it.
You get 7 guys on IUD and the overtime budget's gone.
Yeah.
So there's no way of knowing, really preparing for that.
And then the other action item here is I'll put on the list of questions for Steve. How do we blend the salary rates and ranks and bring parity where needed? Okay. All right. Anything else on the personnel budgets and staffing? Okay. The last thing in here is more just kind of food for thought. We're coming up on the deadline of giving something to the council, that July 22nd meeting. I don't think we need to ask for an extension, but I think we should still have the commission go to that meeting and say, this is where we are, and have some sort of a work product. So in the back of the agenda, you'll see kind of a suggestion of how we should lay it out and tell the story. So the introduction, how the commission came to be, what was our charge, what's the history of fire and EMS services in Coventry, what's the current landscape, what does it look like? Talk about kind of our process here, what data we reviewed, how we came to the conclusions that we did. And then all of the findings that we've discussed, the equipment management, the capital improvement piece, the service and maintenance contracts, capital improvement planning, staffing-based service model improvement. So we talked about the personnel, the debt management and financial stability, and then the policy and legal piece. And then in the recommendation section, I talked about this with Dan too. I think the recommendation section needs to show the pros and cons between a municipal versus a single district. We need to make the case to the public and show what each of them would provide. I know there's assumptions in this room about one being better than the other, and, but we need to still show that due diligence to people and why, one may be better than the other. So I think we need to make that case. And then also state too that if it is one district, we can't tell we can't tell you guys to do that. The districts, the town can't tell you. That's a completely separate agency. And that would then be up to the districts, and we're back to where we started.
I know too, for Westerns, the board's view, if it would be district, they want to be west, and then it would be the eastern district. So I know that that's like when they were doing the Dynamex thing,
Mhm.
I guess they had discussed that a lot with them, and they were upset that it didn't get put in that report. And some taxpayers out in Western would like to see pros and cons of that as well.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of a single district, also include a two district.
Okay.
It's like a sticking point out there.
Okay.
For Western two, I don't know which category this would go under. There was a floor motion at the last annual meeting, that they would like to sell everything. So the town wouldn't just get it.
Mhm.
So I think that there should be, like, if we give a spreadsheet, this is what the taxes would be if you were to sell it. This is the tax would be, get it. And then if there is a vote, they would have all the information on that as well.
Yeah. Because JP and I have talked about this. Because it then becomes a policy question with that, right? Where, if Western wants to sell the town everything at market rate, the argument could be made that those folks are paying for it twice. Same thing if Western stayed a district and the rest of the town went municipal, there's an argument that those folks would be then paying certain taxes twice. And Steve would argue that you should abate those people. But then what JP and I talk about is, well, then somebody who doesn't have kids in the school system could say, well, then my taxes should be abated because I don't have kids in the school system. The slippery slope could, yeah. So it's a policy discussion nonetheless. Yeah. No, it's being realistic. We can't bury our heads in the sand and pretend that those narratives aren't out there, so.
So you'd sell a rescue and make $30,000 and then have to replace it and spend $1.2 million to replace the rescue. I understand that, but that needs to be clarified. That apparatus is still going to be needed.
I want to be careful we don't talk about something not on the agenda, but it's point taken in terms of including it. Okay. All right. I think that's it for item and agenda items. Anything else on any of the three things? So you've got the inquiry into the state on MERS analysis and the rolling of 401k folks in. We've got legal questions for Steve on the Potvin and Western contracts for the chiefs. Yeah, no, the legislative enactments that may be needed. That's what the whole resolution was a couple weeks ago. The charter says that the town can do it. It doesn't say it needs a vote, so. Mhm.
Thank you. I think that should be advertised because I know a lot of people are under the impression that they may be voting, so.
We can put review of that charter section.
Yeah, I think it's not only reviewing the town's charter, obviously, it's reviewing the legislative and the charters of each district.
Well, if the town decided to go municipal, it's gonna need legislative enactment to go over the 4% to absorb that budget.
Right.
Wouldn't you need legislative action to dissolve the charters as well?
They can still exist. They just won't be able to collect taxes anymore. They could be a museum. Once the town
Oh, that was a
decides to
question.
tax,
about
yeah.
that, so.
The districts don't die unless those districts decide to dissolve them. All right, if there's no other business before us, any last words? All right, then I will take a motion to adjourn at 7:12 PM.
Make a motion?
Motion, do I have a second? Second, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, we stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone.